The popcorn homicide case.
Popcorn homicide case, man. This is an interesting one for sure. It doesn't
Yes.
surprise me that they're having difficulty finding a jury, because if it's so outrageous that, finding someone who's open-minded, it's like, but yeah, I think we're heading rapidly to a successful change of venue. Change of venue is typically difficult. Most of the time, they want to go through the attempt to at least form a jury. But at this point, with the amount of jurors they've gone through and the lack of success, I'd be definitely arguing or renewing that motion for change of venue. It's like we can't get to where we want to be. There's no way we can't get there. So we need to find a different venue. So I'm not sure where that would necessarily be, but
it's somewhere. So somewhere not in Tampa, I guess. So, but so for anyone that isn't familiar with this case, this is a case that happened 8 years ago. So it was what, 2000
in the before time,
13? Yeah, in the long before time, right? Long before we knew what the COOF was, and before we were, living in a much more digitized world, where people were talking about NFTs and things like that. Anyhow, so this man, what is his name? Reeves is his last name. What's his first name? Curtis Reeves, right?
I'm not sure.
You know what? I have it in the description, because I definitely knew it then. Curtis Reeves, yes. So
Okay.
he went to the movies with his wife. The greatest irony of this case is that, do you know what movie they went to go see?
Someone told me before, and I don't recognize the name, but yeah.
Lone Survivor.
Yeah.
Lone Survivor, about the Navy SEAL that got stuck in Afghanistan. Everybody else died except for him, and he had to survive until he got picked up again and saved, essentially. So it's just the terrible irony of like that being the movie in a situation like this. So anyway, they went to go see Lone Survivor. It was a matinee. And there was a gentleman with his wife sitting, I guess, in the row in front of them. And he was texting, and Mr. Reeves got very upset about that. And there's an age difference between these two, which I think is relevant. Mr. Reeves was 71 years old, I believe, at the time. And the other gentleman was 43, I think. So you have a certain physical difference that is probably going to come up at trial. At least, the defense is probably going to try to make it an issue. I don't know if they'll succeed, but they'll at least try to make it an issue. But anyhow, the guy in front of him was texting. He got upset. The guy told him to essentially F off, apparently. Mr. Reeves decided to leave, complained to management. He came back. He said something to him again, and then things escalated. The guy threw he took his popcorn, threw it at him. He threw his phone at him, I guess. And then Mr. Reeves decided to shoot him. So Mr. Reeves is a former cop, which is highly relevant because that's, people that we expect to be able to handle a firearm and use it reasonably and whatnot. And it just seems like this does not seem like a very good self-defense case.
No.
Yeah, let's get your thoughts on it.
No, yeah, I think the ultimate problem is that I just don't think that how do you have a subjective fear of death or grievous bodily harm? Not a subjective fear of harm.
Yeah.
Because that's obviously reasonable. A subjective fear of death or grievous bodily harm. How are you getting there subjectively? And I don't know how that works. And also objectively, it's like, this is just not objectively reasonable in this case.
Yeah.
There's an argument under the precise wording of the statute, which maybe definitionally makes it objectively reasonable, but I haven't read it super closely, but I just don't buy the subjective fear of death or grievous bodily harm.
I will say, I'm going to keep myself open in this case, because I haven't seen the video, because there is a surveillance video from inside the movie theater, I guess, that they are going to be looking at quite a bit in this case, of course. So it'll be interesting to see if that kind of changes the analysis. Like the age difference could play a part in his subjective belief that maybe this is a much bigger, stronger man against this man in her, or in his early 70s, that is uh maybe feeling frail or something. I don't know. But I don't know. It'll be really, really interesting to see what kind of evidence comes out at trial here, um, eh, to show whether or not he's guilty. But my based on my understanding of the basic facts going into it, I'm feeling a little pessimistic about his odds at getting acquitted.
Yeah.
Which means if he's convicted of anything at all, he will probably die in prison, because he's like 79 years old now.
Yeah.
He might die before trial happens
I
at
think
this
it's kind
rate.
of what they were hoping for, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's been 8 years. I mean, since this thing happened. That's a
That's a
long
long
time, man.
time.
That's a
That's a
long time.
long time. I mean, I believe it's been the defense that's been trying to keep trial from happening, right? Because he's been able to, I guess, live a life on his own during this whole time, right? As opposed to spending all that time in prison. He's
Yeah,
been
that's
out on
true.
bail.
Yeah.
So, it's essentially they've been kind of buying him time this whole time.